Welcome to the first annual Carnivore Snark Tank Awards. Yeah, that's what I'm going to go with. Look, let's be honest. We're all here because we either were or are metabolically damaged, and we needed an instruction manual for the one macro that our doctor told us would kill us. And in my opinion, the education in the carnivore community here on YouTube is top tier. But tonight, we're celebrating the top 3 influencers who are as eccentric as they are knowledgeable, adding that necessary flair to the content as they educate the sickly masses on how to repair their metabolic dysfunction. I'm going to be showing you clips, just some quick bursts of brilliance to remind you why these 3 are essential viewing. And let me reiterate, in my book, eccentricity is a good thing. As a chemist, a medical technologist, and a fiction author, I'm hands down a certified weirdo. I can assure you that I'm at least 3 times as unstable as the next person. So this is not a bad thing. And just to be clear, while we have many top-tier leaders, the pillars of the community, the ones who keep the lights on, like Dr. Sean Baker, their perpetually jacked OG carnivore daddy, Dr. Ken Berry, the genius good old boy, and of course, the grand emperor of the rumination station, Dr. Anthony Hercules Chafee. Glory be to him, the extra ruminant. Oh, that reminds me, I've got to set up a date and time for a live stream cult meeting. I'm thinking of definitely a goat sacrifice. What? It's ruminant. But anyway, that's off topic. Besides, we can talk logistics later. But these 3 individuals I'm about to talk about tonight bring something special to our community, a mix of snark and quirkiness and academia seldom witnessed in the natural world. They are the intellectual spice rack of the carnivore diet. So let's get into it right here on the Carnivore Science Channel. Coming in at number 3 is Edward Goeke. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. But Edward has officially claimed the title that was previously held by Nick Norwitz for my favorite nerd. Now, you know, Nick is great and everything. He's like the golden retriever of the carnivore space. But Edward is like the highly intelligent, slightly agitated chihuahua who's prepared to bite your ankle off if you cite a flawed study. I appreciate that. His quick wit and short fuse are exactly what's needed in this space. He calls out the nonsense before it even hits comment sections. He is meticulously researched, delivers his content at the speed of light, and is clearly operating on a higher plane of logic than many of his peers. He's so good, he makes you feel dumber just by watching him. And I love that. So let's take a look at some of his best takedowns, shall we?
So anyway, why did I go on that spiel? Because what is the evidence? What is the evidence to suggest that low-carbohydrate athletes have problems when it comes to high-intensity training compared to high-carbohydrate athletes? And if there is any evidence that suggests that, I would like to know the adaptation period that they went through, what type of low-carbohydrate diet they're consuming, and also you have to understand that there is still going to be a distinction between genotype and phenotype in terms of the maximum rate of an exercise that someone can engage in. People are going to be genetically gifted, okay? You can't inform upon this as easily as you want to, or as you think you can, Zane. It's ridiculous what you're saying.
Or not fire, because
they won't fire.
Not enough glucose on hand. The body knows it and doesn't want to use it up.
So does this depend on phenotype and genotype? Zane? There are multiple confounding variables you're not considering here. So
back to little bunny trail there. Back to the glucose issue.
Oh my God, it's not an issue, Zane. It's not a issue. You've made it a fake issue. That's what you've done here today, Zane.
So as gluconeogenesis starts getting into gear, right, and you have a little
No, it's always in gear, by the way, Zane, so you don't even understand that. It's always in gear, even if you're eating carbohydrates regularly. Did you know that? You're producing glucose all the time. The rate at which you produce is going to be lower or higher depending on what you're eating and how frequently you're eating, too. Doesn't mean you don't produce it. You're producing it at all times. That should give you a hint about something, by the way. You're producing it even in a high carbohydrate fed state? Yeah, you are. Rhonda Patrick confuses association with causation on the topic of blueberry consumption.
Blueberries make you smarter.
No, there's no evidence to support that claim. So then she says 1 cup. Is that what she's about to say?
Of blueberries improves cognition, executive function, memory, also process.
No. Okay, so I'm sorry. No, what you saw was an association in a certain group of people with improved cognitive function and all of these other things that you were saying, based on arbitrary criteria constructed by the authors in response to reported consumption of 1 cup of blueberries alongside many other different things that they were eating and also many other things that they were doing. Also many other things that they weren't eating and many other things that they weren't doing, with a complete lack of control actually exerted. You're either talking about longitudinal studies or you're talking about randomized controlled trials. Usually it's in the form of the former, and that makes it even worse because of, well, vast error with respect to the reporting. It's based on questionnaires that are administered every year. The reporting of relative outcome statistics as opposed to absolute outcome statistics, the problem of multivariate regression, so adjustment of data, so in other words, fabrication of data, publication bias, extrapolative power, all of these things play a role in this, and it needs to be considered. And if you actually understood how to interpret science and you were a data analyst, then you'd understand how ridiculous this actually is. This is completely ridiculous. Do not eat blueberries.
Be multiple studies showing this. There's been
multiple studies showing this. Oh, and meta-analyses. Good. So meta-analyses. Look into arbitrary selection criteria when it comes to constructing meta-analyses. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy is a big one in that regard. Big problem as a result of that. Also known as cherry picking. But also, you can only responsibly aggregate studies into a meta-analysis if they're effectively the same type of study done on different populations. If they had different methodologies, they're different studies. So, nope. You have to look at the integrity of each individual study to actually assess the integrity of the overall meta-analysis. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. It's a very common espoused line in science, in the science sphere, because of this. All right? So, no meta-analyses. What was the statistical power? What was it? Was there any statistical significance? And even if there was, it's based on that is an arbitrary cutoff, and it doesn't actually measure practical significance in the real world. What was the signal to noise ratio for the primary outcome variable or variables concerned? Probably the noise swamps the signal entirely, because I would suspect really low sample sizes. What was the duration of time that these studies went on for? What was the control exerted? It was none. Spoiler. Ridiculous. Human nutrition science has limitations and you need to cover it. You can't just say improves. It's a cause and effect statement. It can only measure associations. There's none, which makes sense because we already... So the question becomes, do we change our diet from what we were designed to eat to be balanced and live differently from every other animal in the hope that we can live longer and more healthy? Or do we just stick with what nature intended? Wait, what's this?
Welcome to the Plant-Free MD podcast with Dr. Anthony Chafee. Talk on what I basically did at KetoCon, so the why we are carnivores. And there are things in meat that you have to have that don't exist in plants. And so you necessarily have to eat both. So humans don't fall into either of those categories. Eyes to prey animals. This is something that we...
If you've ever had the experience of telling your doctor that you're eating a carnivore diet, you can picture it in your mind right now.
Ken Berry, a family physician with 20 years of clinical experience and over a year and a half of experience with the carnivore diet. And this video is going to help you understand. Now let's jump right into this comprehensive.
So I'm not the only one that believes this either. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and eat steak for dinner and drink water. Yeah. No, I'm biased because social media is not the greatest way to meet those people, but, it's just from my experience, and so I'm not going to extrapolate it to all vegans based on just this inference alone, or but just these experiences. But there is one in my comment section regularly. Shout out to you. I don't know your name. You're respectful. And then I met one years ago. And she actually had to get a B12 injection because her skin, or her nails and her hair were falling out because she was so B12 deficient that she was going to die. By the way, I'm not making that up. And she blamed it on parasites. I kid you not. I felt bad. I genuinely felt bad. I was like, gosh, how deluded do you have to be? I mean, at the very least, make the argument that you have to supplement. There's plenty of vegans that will actually just come out right and say that, come right out and say that. You need supplements to do a vegan diet, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing it because it's an ethical diet, and then you get into that argument. Fine, okay, good, great. At least you're admitting that you need to supplement. This girl that I'm talking about, this woman, she's in her 40s. She did not even admit to that. Oh, you don't need it. You don't need it. I'm very sorry that you are so delusional.
Gut bacteria. It takes time to get rid of the bad gut bacteria. And
No. You have just made a critical mistake. Bad gut bacteria. According to whom? On the basis of what?
One thing I'll say about him is that I love the fact that he always says, according to whom, on the basis of what? Because these are the questions that need to be asked. Where is this crap coming from? There's a lot of crap coming this way, and somebody needs to call it out. So in conclusion, this kid is phenomenal. Edward, for your exceptional contributions to both science and the glorious high IQ Snark, you are receiving the prestigious Causation Does Not Imply Correlation Golden Clipboard Award. Congratulations. Coming in at second place is the brilliant, the bubbly, the B-roll legend himself, Dr. Robert Kiltz. Now, if Edward Goeke is the tightly wound, perfectly calibrated scientific instrument, Dr. Kiltz is, well, he's the Rainbow Man. He's the guy who lives in a perfectly balanced ecosystem of yoga, fertility science, and steak-flavored sunshine. Dr. Kiltz is a successful fertility specialist and a proponent of the carnivore diet, but watching his videos, you realize he's also the only person who can scientifically discuss mitochondrial health while making you believe he's about to hand you a crystal and tell you to align your chi, which, by the way, he only lets you align if you're properly fueled by ribeye fat. His energy, his aura, his beef-fueled vitality is almost palpable through the screen. He doesn't just treat metabolic dysfunction. He heals your soul with steak.
I know, fruits and vegetables seem so great for all of us. Seeds and nuts, so great. But the plants, they're the predators, and they want to kill you and I. I know, it didn't make sense to me, but as I went off the plants and then my bowel bleeding stopped, and I've seen so many where the inflammation goes fast, 2 to 4 weeks. You have to get rid of the sugar, not the white sugar, the green stuff, the seeds, the nuts, the smoothies, the healthy snack bars, the things that are fake and not meant for a human being. You are a beautiful human being. Change it up. You must. All right, number 2. All right, all the sugar comes from plants. The plants make chemicals, phytochemicals, arsenic, cyanide, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, caffeine. Yes, all those things. They are causing damage and disease in you and I. Plus, they make the phytohemagglutinin, which are the chemicals that cause blood clotting. Yes, I know, it didn't make sense to me either, but it's true. Oh, let's see. Estrogen, progesterone, and androgens, testosterone, come from plants. They too are in all those great smoothies and shakes, from the seeds and the nuts, the fruits and the vegetables, the bananas. All right, Are we what, idiots? No, I know you're not. You're really, really smart. Yes, lettuce is sugar, and it contains phytochemicals that want to kill you, disrupt your reproduction, because plants can't run nor hide, but they can attack you with their chemicals. Sneaky little beasts, aren't they? Let's talk bacon, my friends. Bacon is the most popular meat in the world, with over 268 million bacon eaters in America alone. Bacon provides a complete array of amino acids along with an abundance of healthy fats. Almost half of the fat in bacon is monounsaturated, which is high in heart-healthy oleic acid. Together, fats and proteins, which break down to fatty acids and amino acids, are remarkably satisfying, which reduces food cravings and feelings of deprivation that drive food addiction. The significant amount of B vitamins, zinc, choline, selenium that you get from only 4 slices of bacon would take consuming pounds of various vegetables, and you'd still be missing out. This is a concept called meat efficiency, my friends. Meat makes masters. Eat the bacon, eat the fatty meat, and be fit, fertile, and fantastic. What's a standard American diet? I'll tell you. It's what we've all been eating globally. It's plant-based, very little animal products. It's mostly fish and chicken and lean, and there's no fatty red meat. And we're getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Too many people are dying younger and younger and younger. And there's too many drugs, dissections, and too many doctors. And I know this. I'm seeing too many people that are sick on a standard American diet recommended by a standard American doctor. I know there's a little faux pas there, but it's all good. What I found is that it's just making us sick. I was reading a journal recently that suggested for pregnancy and beyond, it's fruit, fiber, vegetables, seeds, nuts, lean meat, no red meat, fish, but only some and certain ones. But ultimately, it's all sugar and it's protein and there's no fat. It turns out that fat is so critical to our nutrition. It reduces inflammation in our bodies, and it is the fuel for the mitochondria. It's not sugar. This is the craziness. Why do you stay on the standard American diet? Because the standard American dictators tell us it's healthy for you? I'm not sure that that's true. What I've seen too often, cancer, heart disease, and so many diseases are silent until they show themselves. Unfortunately, they show themselves without warning signs. And we doctors don't have good methods of picking them up early enough. So, standard American diet or the keto carnivore way? You're the only one that can choose what's right for you.
So Dr. Kiltz is just pure, unadulterated, beef-loving joy. He's the happy, slightly psychedelic uncle of the carnivore movement. He manages to marry cutting-edge medical science with a vibe that suggests that he might just levitate after his next meal. Dr. Kiltz, for being the spiritual shaman of the space, you win the Peace Steak and Chill Award. Namaste. All right, buckle up. It's time for our grand prize winner. First place goes to the legendary, the fearless, the man who uses his PhD to publicly execute straw man, Professor Bart Kay, the Noob Slayer. The professor is a walking academic menace. He is the scientific equivalent of a Doberman Pinscher in a tweed jacket. When he starts a video, you know 2 things are about to happen. Number 1, he's going to drop some heavy-duty, meticulously cited medical knowledge that is going to leave you smarter. And 2, he's going to call someone an idiot in the most brilliantly articulate way possible. But what truly sets Professor Bart Kay apart from everybody else is his co-host, Ted the Bear. Yeah, we got to talk about this. The professor has, shall we say, a close and possibly inappropriate relationship with his stuffed bear. Ted is his silent, always present, and occasionally battered companion. Ted is there for every study, review, every rant, every time the professor has to drop a hard truth bomb. It is the most consistent, interesting, and somewhat somewhat unsettling part of his channel. I honestly don't know which is more intimidating, Bart Kay's brain or Ted's habit of twiddling knobs.
Nicholas Verhoeven, once again, not for the first time. I've dealt with Nicholas Verhoeven previously when he was a PhD student. Apparently now he has a fully fledged PhD. Well done, Nicholas. I'm impressed. But not really, because this video is going to show us exactly what the worth of PhDs are these days. Pew. Because Nicholas, in his PhD studies, hasn't learned any basic discipline, hasn't learned anything about the basic epistemology of science and cause and effect inference whatsoever, it seems. And he's about to prove it, aren't you, Nicholas? Off you go, Nicholas Verhoeven.
This is a frustrating video to make.
Oh, I bet it is.
But I've been meaning to make it for quite some time. So I'm plowing forward. In the end, I'm going to infect...
That's probably the only thing you're likely to be ploughing anytime soon, I would imagine.
...you with that same frustration, but...
Yes, indeed, frustration.
I can tell you that we'll still come out the other end with actionable understanding on...
Not from you, Nicholas, we won't. I've watched the first few minutes of this already to decide whether or not it's worth responding to. Yes, it is worth responding to. No, you're not going to get anything of any value, utility, robustness, correctness from Nicholas Verhoeven today.
One, why low carbohydrate diets raise the risk of premature death.
Right, shall we all say it together then? No, not risk, Nicholas. There are no studies with the capacity to inform us, you and I, or anybody else, on their risk of death as that relates to any aspect of anything whatsoever. There are no studies extant that can support that claim. False. We're done. Really? But we'll go through your video anyway because we've started. It didn't take long, did it? What was that? 21 seconds into your video, Nicholas. Wrong. Completely, irretrievably, intractably wrong.
Two, why it may not matter for many. And
the dying doesn't matter? Wrong again, Nicholas.
Three, how to avoid it altogether while still sticking to a low-carb diet.
So more cause and effect claims that Nicholas is going to make that he can't support, it seems. Excellent. Well done, Nicholas.
All based on these studies, including hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, so what?
I realize that when you pair up...
So were any of those 100,000 people, Nicholas, you or me or anybody to whom you're pasting these so-called statements about risk onto? No? Oh, we're done. You cannot cut and paste results from one population to any other population. That's not scientifically robust, justifiable. Sorry about that. Not sorry.
Low-carb diets raises the risk of premature death.
No, they don't, though, because there is no evidence to support that claim. And it would seem incredibly unlikely, given that the exact dietary requirement for life, ongoingly, for human beings, for dietary carbohydrates, is, let's all say that together too, shall we, kiddies? Not 1 single gram ever. What is next?
And why it won't matter, that's a weird combination. Yeah.
But it's a weird combination, Nicholas, because the first part of it is entirely anti-scientific. It's not supported by any empirical evidence anywhere. It's a theology. And the second part is just therefore nonsensical. And it's nonsensical in its very formulation, because to suggest that dying early doesn't matter, well, it does to me. I don't want to die early.
I don't really care if I die years earlier than...
Well, I do, Nicholas.
I'm supposed to. Anyway, bear with me. I'll explain.
No, I don't think you will. I think you'll try to, but you'll probably just dig your hole even deeper, son, because you're already completely above your head here. Because you've just happily espoused the ridiculous, erroneous, vacuous notion that a retrospective report on incidents can prospectively make any remotely reasonable statement about anyone else's likelihood in a completely different population going forward. That is not science, Nicholas. We're done. You're an idiot. Go back to school. Hand your PhD in until such time as you've learned the basic epistemology of science, for goodness sake. Wow.
So, I analyzed 5 studies.
5 studies he analysed. Good, Nicholas, good.
some of them individual studies and one meta-analysis.
Oh, one meta-analysis. Oh, a meta-analysis of what, Nicholas? We'll get to that.
It's trying to find out if across hundreds of thousands of participants in these studies, there is an increased risk of dying on a low.
Well, in those populations that were studied, under the conditions that they were studied at that time, that these reports are based upon, risk is an entirely inappropriate statement for them as well. Guess why? Because this is retrospective, Nicholas. It's a report on the incidence of death that has occurred or has not occurred in the time frame of the follow-up. So the odds for each person in that cohort is 1 to 1. They either died or they did not die. And their odds of dying or not dying are 1 or 0. Okay? Is this hard to understand? I hope not.
The way that you're talking about this, it's really hard to talk to you because
because I'm unassailable, Kevin. That's what the problem is here. Because you have made a complete error in your assessment of this paper and its ability to inform on cause and effect. There is no finger hold here. There is no way to assail here. You cannot get out of this.
Yeah, there's just a wall in your thinking that no matter what I say, you always have some...
It's called scientific discipline, and it's called experience of actual science, Kevin.
But I think if you actually spent time thinking about, there are answers to every criticism that you make.
Give me a valid response to, if I say to you, look at residuals around this trend line that's been imposed on this data set, the one in red, and I suggest to you that visually, with my experience, that the R-squared value on that is probably less than 0.30, and as such its utility is about all, please give me a valid response to that changes that fact, because it's still going to be a fact.
But if I look at a carnivore diet, my worry with deficiencies is on the fiber side, because if you're eating a meat-based diet, which is obviously going to have fat, that's going to stimulate cholecystokinin, which is going to stimulate bile acids. The bile acids change the microbiome to a microbiome that doesn't produce as much butyrate, and that causes gap junction. But regardless, what we're seeing is inflammation.
Blah, 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 blah. Finish.
So how do you answer that?
Well, let's cover that one. All the benefits that you will get from fiber, such that they are also accruing to people who are in ketosis. In other words, the production of ketones provides the exact same benefits. There you go.
You hit it.
Bang. Vegan.
Yes.
I hope I pronounced that correctly. That's how you pronounce vegan, isn't it?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
But more to the point, you suggested in your critique of my good friend Joey the other day that you thought that it would be difficult for anyone to argue that a meat-based diet of any kind could possibly be superior to a diet based on solely sweet potato.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. Well, perhaps you'd like to share with us your reasoning for that.
Well, so sweet potato, there's probably thousands of individual species of sweet potato, and a lot of them you can actually eat the tuber as well as the green leafies that grow up on top. So, there's a lot of vitamins and nutrients and minerals that's going to be available in there. And it seems to me, based on the evidence and just the research I've been doing over the last few years, I'm not going to recommend a sweet potato only diet to anyone, but that would be a high carbohydrate diet, high complex carbohydrate diet, which seems to be protective in terms of all-cause mortality, heart disease risk, cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, all of those things. And then when you go over to the meat, it's like, oh, it causes heart disease and cancer and type 2 diabetes. So
fantastic. Yeah. Would you like to point us to a single study that can inform us in any respect whatsoever on cause and effect as regarding human nutrition and any aspect of hard health outcomes in human beings over any period of time?
Well, I would if you were open to having a data-driven debate, which it doesn't seem that you are.
I'm more than happy to talk about data if you've got any data of that nature. If you do, of course, that would be a world first that no one had ever heard of before, and it would be a shock because that data does not exist. The word you used was cause.
Yep.
The only way to establish cause and effect is with a properly designed, properly disciplined, properly randomized, properly powered, properly tenured metabolic ward lock-in study that's interventional in nature and controls every other degree of freedom that could possibly confound your result. Failing that, you are not talking about cause and effect. You are making an inference around association. And as such, your posit fails on that count.
Okay, yeah, well, I thought you might say that. But if that standard that you hold is the 100% gold undeniable standard.
It's not my standard, it's the standard of science. If you want to talk about cause and effect and say there is scientific evidence to support a claim of cause and effect, those are the standards. They were put together more than 2,000 years ago. I wasn't even born.
Okay, well, most scientists disagree with that, but let's just say if
No, they
that's
don't.
your...
No, they don't.
If-
Pseudoscientists disagree with that. Scientists agree with the disciplines of science and they apply them appropriately.
Okay,
People
well,
that
if
claim to be scientists aren't necessarily scientists. I heard you yourself not that many minutes ago claiming to have done some research. Doing research is what happens in laboratories, doing experiments. Scientists do that. Reading somebody else's research is not doing research, son.
Okay, so if that's your 100% gold platinum standard undeniable evidence, would you be willing to say that if something was at 99% of that standard, it could still be reasonably inferred that the results are pointing towards something that could have some truth to it?
Have you got something that's 99% up to standard? Because, again, that would be a world first. It does not exist. Being an expert in the literature and what's in it, in this area, having studied it as an actual academic in this field, actually doing research in this field and publishing articles as first author in this field, I'm well acquainted with what's in this field. And I can tell you there's nothing remotely close to 99% up to standard on cause and effect in human nutrition. It is a ring-fenced area of ideology, which is underpinned largely by theology.
If I can just interject one question, Victoria, you just mentioned LDL, for example, elevated cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly is the problem with elevated cholesterol?
According to the research, which is very kind of opposing right now because there has been a lot of talk about elevated LDL not being linked to increased cardiovascular disease risk, but it still can be an issue for those who are experiencing enhanced LDL oxidation, which is what creates the plaque formation and contributes
Absolute
towards
nonsense,
the
Victoria. That is
cardiovascular
not,
disease.
One of
risk.
us is a cardiovascular pathophysiologist, love, and it's not you.
That doesn't
All right?
mean you know what you're talking about. Are you a
It really does,
cardiovascular
love.
doctor?
It really does. Okay, look, tell you what. Let's go through the etiology of the development of atherosclerotic lesioning, shall we? And let's deal with this.
Okay.
Because that's real simple. Tell me, where do atherosclerotic lesions develop, Victoria?
They develop from the oxidation
Not
of
from,
LDL
where?
cholesterol.
Where do they develop?
It's being supplied by the diet.
No. Where do atheroscleroses develop? Where in the body?
Predominantly in the blood vessels,
Which
particularly
blood
in the heart.
vessels? No, wrong again. False. So you actually
well,
have
then
you actually have absolutely no idea whatsoever.
I'm
of
not
the
saying
pathophysiology
here
of-
that I am a cardiovascular specialist. Okay.
Okay, well, I am, and I'm telling you that LDL does not cause atherosclerosis. That's a fact. You've just said research shows, or the research is equivocal. Okay, the research is unable, the existing research is unable to inform on cause and effect for heart disease. You need a deterministic model. You need an understanding of what the disease process is, where it occurs in the body, how it occurs, the histology of that tissue, and then you can put together a model of how this disease process develops. Until then, you have absolutely no place and no business talking publicly to any audience whatsoever about the etiology of this disease. You are out of your lane. How's that?
I think that you are kind of like not, you're telling me that I'm wrong, but you're not explaining how you are right because you're not
Well, let's go through it.
explaining
Let's go
how.
through it.
But
Let's go through it then.
the last thing I want to say though is that a lot of this is brought on by insulin resistance. So I think that the
Insulin resistance
carnivore.
is a construct. Please give me the
That's
name of a
fine that if
company.
you
Please
want
give me the
to.
name of a company that puts
hang on.
together and markets an insulin resistance meter.
Okay. They don't
finish
market
your
insulin
point, Victor.
resistance meters. they sell glucose meters, which test for your blood sugar levels. But what
That's
I'm
right.
trying to
And that's
say
the thing
is
that can
that
be measured.
something I think we can all kind of agree upon is that the reason why you, Bart, do the carnivore diet and DC, I believe that you're doing some kind of a low carb thing. And the reason why I eat low carb, or the reason why I eat high carb, low fat, is to manage insulin. So a lot of people go on a carnivore diet or a ketogenic diet so that they can lower insulin levels. And this produces a lot of beneficial effects, right? Because usually the person is presenting with elevated or hyperinsulinemia due to elevated blood glucose levels that have been chronic, and it's because of what they're eating, right? So both diets can produce beneficial results. I just have done the keto diet myself, never went full on carnivore, and I've done a lot of fasting and things like that. It's unsustainable, and it also produces impaired glucose tolerance. And actually, I found a literature paper that's on the Randall cycle where it says this right in the paper that the Randall cycle can be problematic due to the fact that it is impaired glucose tolerance. Okay, the fatty acid oxidation preference impairs glucose tolerance, which can cause insulin resistance. So I listened to a talk, Mark, that you did about this topic, and you said that the Randall cycle is what dictates what insulin does, and you're right. But if you really want to cure insulin resistance and you want to not have impaired glucose tolerance, then eating a high carb, low fat diet is what needs to be adopted in order to have actual insulin sensitivity. And that is what is going to be preventable or preventative against chronic disease development like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, etc.
Again, with the number of threads all in one great big long spiel, again, I'm going to ask you, let's deal with 1 point at once and 1 point only at once, and we'll deal with it point-wise, because that's the only way to get through this. You've now changed the focus. Smoke and mirrors, look over there, something shiny, because you're getting absolutely hammered on cardiovascular pathophysiology. And now you want to go to something else, insulin resistance.
Oh, we've just lost.
Bye-bye.
Victoria.
Okay. And now she wants to talk about insulin resistance, another thing she clearly doesn't understand. And then she wants to talk about the Randall cycle, a third thing she clearly doesn't understand.
Okay, guys, this man is an absolute national freaking treasure. You just cannot look away. For his unparalleled combination of rigorous academic demolition and unsettling puppet-based companionship, Professor Bart Kay, the Noob Slayer, is the winner of the Bare Knuckle Award for Scientific and Snarky Excellence. Well done, sir. Well done. Thank you so much for watching the video, and let me know what you think in the comments section about these three quirky creators. And if you liked the video, if you could hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future videos and live streams. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.